Okay, welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 6, and I'm joined by Luke Fossey. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited to do this. I listen to podcasts all the time. I'm ready to rock and roll.
I'm excited, too. Now, you and we had kind of ran into each other a little while back, and, you right away kind of mentioned the podcast, and I was really excited. I'm kind of bad at this. We were just talking about both of us kind of jumping into things and not really knowing what we're doing.
Right.
So it's fun kind of getting the podcast going and then getting to talk to people who maybe don't talk to a ton.
I seen that you started the Luke Nielsen Media, and you were advertising that you did podcasts with your brothers, and then you had Squires on there, and the guy from Riceville.
Yeah, Bryce. Yeah. Yep.
And I'm on the road all the time for work, so that's what I do. I listen to podcasts. I get so sick of listening to music, so I'm like, let's listen to Joe Rogan.
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, and that was fun because we got talking about podcasts, and I listened to this one, and it is a lot. Like everybody and their cousin has a podcast now, but it's kind of fun.
Right. And I pick and choose. There's some that I've tried to listen to, and I can't get into it, but I was, like I said, I envied you that you were doing it. And I'm like, how do you even get into that?
Like I get into everything else, just with no real plan.
Right.
By a microphone. But, and then it was cool, too, because, just a little backstory. So you're, 2 years behind me in school,
2 years behind you, yep.
And, one thing that we specifically got talking about is sort of addressing, health concerns and different, health things that both of us have been through. And, I guess because you were a couple years behind me in school, you were really kind of closer to, my younger brother, Logan.
Right. Logan was a year younger than me,
yep.
So I kind of got to know him. I mean, the first time I saw him eat a piece of paper, I thought he was the bomb.
yeah, that'd be my comedian brother who's been on this podcast twice. And, he was good for a laugh, always.
Yep, and my brother's real close with your younger brother, Landon.
Yep.
Yep. So the whole family, I kind of know them all, and
yeah, and it was interesting when we started talking because, I guess I kind of remember when you were going through a lot of your really challenging health stuff, but being a couple years older, you and I weren't tight at that time, so it's sort of okay,
yep.
I remember that. So maybe I guess from my perspective, I remember when you were in middle school, and that was kind of the time when we were turning around the football program at St. Ansgar.
Yep.
And it was kind of who were the young guys who were coming up, who were those athlete guys, those hard-nosed guys, and it was oh man, this Luke Fossey, man, he's going to be one of those guys. And am I wrong? That's kind of right around when stuff started.
That's when it all started. My thing was wrestling, and I played football too. Anything contact, anything where I had a chance to dominate someone, I wanted to jump in.
Yeah.
And really, looking back, I needed that. It was. It was, and I grew up in a good household. Mom and dad, dad made me work. Mom, did a lot for me too, but, looking back for what I went through, that kind of mentality got me through a lot of things.
Yeah. And so, for people who don't kind of know the story, so you got diagnosed with cancer.
I did. Yep.
So at what age did that happen?
It was 2000. I was between 7th and 8th grade year.
Okay.
I was actually wrestling, of course, as always. I didn't play baseball in the summertime. I wrestled in the summertime.
Yeah.
And I was gassed all the time, and I was never gassed.
Yeah.
It was okay, I'm training to go to this. I'm gonna go to this tournament, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. So we went in and got a checkup. They're like, wow, it's allergy season. Let's shoot you some Allegra up the nose, and then within a 2-week span or a week span, it just got incredibly worse. I couldn't even go to practice, and that's one thing that I didn't do. I didn't miss practice.
Yeah.
I mean, all my friends would be at the pool or something, and I'd be like, nope, I got practice tonight. I'm going to practice. And I was young. I mean, between 7th and 8th grade, like I said, and nope, I got to go to practice. And I couldn't even go to practice. I'm like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
So
then you eventually go in for more
I went
tests.
back to, they did a chest x-ray. Something looked abnormal with my heart. And they're like, well, where do you want to go, Rochester or Iowa City?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the Hawks are in Iowa City, but I've heard about this Mayo place. Let's go up there.
Yeah.
And it was just a whirlwind from there.
Okay. So what wound up being the official diagnosis?
I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Okay.
And I had a tumor in my chest on the left side, the size of a softball. Mm-hmm. And what caused my breathing problems was there was a sac of fluid that came around my heart. It was causing it to push on my esophagus, so I wasn't getting air. I couldn't lay flat. I'd have to lay on like a recliner.
Sure.
And I couldn't recline that far because so for like a week on top of it, I didn't sleep. Mm-hmm. And more than anything, I was pissed I couldn't go to wrestling practice. More than anything. But we got up there, and right away I went and seen a heart specialist. They're like, okay, let's go get an ultrasound in your heart area, and then all of a sudden, bam, 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 I was put in like 3 different rooms. No idea where my mom and dad were. And then finally, these guys come in, and they're like, okay, we're taking you into surgery. And I was like, ooh. For what? Like I'm a healthy 14-year-old kid, or 13, whatever it was. I'm not good at math.
that neighborhood.
So we did that, and they're like, well, there's a tumor in your chest. We're 90% sure it's cancer. And I was like, okay, like where's mom and dad? I'm like, where are they?
Yeah.
And they came into the room, and that's when the doctor's like, okay, here I'm a, they specialize in that, and we're sure that it's a tumor in your chest that's by cancer. I'm like, so take it out. Like, just open me up, take it out.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't. It's under all your organs, and blah blah blah. And so I was like, okay. And Dad, first time I ever seen Dad cry.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what are you doing? Don't do that. No, we got wrestling season coming up. Don't do that. And, I was like, okay. I'm like, let's do this. I still got a state title to win, and let's do it. Like, I just didn't care. Like, there was no emotion. It was like, stone cold.
Yeah.
It was like, let's do it.
Well, and, that's interesting because I was going to ask what your initial reaction was. And that was sort of always my interpretation as an outside observer, is that seemed to be your approach to it. It's like, whatever we have to do next, let's just do it.
It really was. And I'm not exaggerating with it. I mean, I was upset. I didn't, this isn't ideal for me right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through this, but, it could be worse. I mean, it could have been, if it would have been a heart thing, it would have been worse probably,
Sure.
So I was like, let's just kick it in the butt and let's do it.
Yeah.
And, like the days leading up afterwards, they went pretty fast. I remember a few different things. I cried once in 2 weeks afterwards.
Sure. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I just had a great attitude. And the reason that I had that attitude, and I'm not just saying this because I love the sport, I had the wrestler's mentality.
Sure.
It was, you go in there to dominate, not just to have a hobby. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is basically the next step. I'm going to go in, and I don't care what they throw at me. I'm going to dominate it. So
that's awesome. And so, where it went from there, you go in for the initial surgery, but it was, a fairly lengthy period of time you were dealing with all this, wasn't it?
It was. Basically it was the initial diagnosis I was in for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. A lot of that was still draining the residual fluid around my heart. And then, it was kind of the first couple days were intensive care, and then it was like to a normal room. They'd actually already started chemo when they operated. Mm-hmm. They didn't even wait to test because they were that sure. I was fine with that, and then they come in and they're like, oh, you're young enough. You get to make a wish. Wish not have this. But I knew that wasn't possible, so
that's really funny.
Didn't ask that. I didn't. That wasn't. It was like, let me think about it. I knew, okay, that's the best thing that comes out of that. Cool, whatever.
Yeah.
So. So I went in, we did that, I was in for 2 weeks, I think, got to go home for a week, and started feeling pretty good again. I'm like, all right, can I go to the wrestling room, or can I go, to the pool, or what, and I still had, some things, in my arm, that they were, doing IV treatments and stuff like that. And but ended up doing a week in the hospital, a week out of the hospital for 6 months doing treatment.
Okay.
6 months came, bam, done. My doctors called me the Rock. They were like, we've never seen this from anybody. You have not gotten sick from chemo. You are still active. You're still running every day. You're still, and again, that goes back to what I had been doing before.
Yeah.
I had a goal in mind and I was going to hit it, and like, I know people say that all the time, like especially celebrities and stuff. I'm not a celebrity, like they all got a sob story, and I'm not. This isn't a sob story for me.
Yeah.
This is not who defines me as what happened to me. But I did it. They cleared me, and I was like, sweet, just in time for wrestling season.
Yeah.
Didn't get to play football that year. I sat on the sidelines with my friends. I was like, but I really wanted to be on the mat.
Yeah.
Went through, wrestled all year. Lost one match because I tore my rotator cuff in the middle of the match. Finished the match, sat out 2 meets, and then kept going, and then down the road, came back. I noticed a bulge in my shoulder. It didn't feel right. Felt like my shoulder was popping out. Kept wrestling. I didn't get, I wasn't gassed this time, but we went up for just a normal checkup. I went back every month, once a month, and they were like, yeah, you're good, you're good. And then the third month, it was like, something might be up here. So they re-diagnosed it.
Yeah.
Yep. So
same diagnosis?
Same diagnosis. I have my opinions. The first time they cleared me, they did a biopsy. They thought it was dead. I don't think they went in far enough because the tumor was still there.
Sure.
And I don't think they went in far enough to see if it was still alive inside. They got the outside piece of it, but and maybe that's the case, maybe it's not, but everybody's got their thoughts, theories, whatever. So
yeah.
Since it came back a second time, they're like, okay, this is gonna be a little more intense. We're gonna get a little thicker on it. We're gonna do, a bone marrow transplant or a stem cell transplant. And I was like, okay, like stem cells. I was like, oh, I watched South Park. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
But ended up having a bone marrow transplant. Everything went great. The same thing. They hit you with intense chemotherapy and just like basically kill all your blood cells. So they're non-existent to make you like you have no immune system.
Yeah.
And then they give you bone marrow back. But in this case, they were able to they took my bone marrow, harvested it, and regrew the bone marrow, and then gave my own bone marrow back to me.
Really?
So, a lot of times a bone marrow transplant will be somebody else's bone marrow that matches, but my bone marrow was healthy, so I was able to, have my own.
Sure. And
fluke of the deal, during it, I ended up with a blood disease, and things went downhill. I gotta watch my swearing here. I was gonna.
No, that's not. I
was gonna say a little more.
Just put a little warning, when I post it, and you're all good.
Things went downhill. Don't remember much for a couple week period. It was like basically all of a sudden they told mom and dad like worst is here. Yeah. Don't expect much. He's, I was on life support. Basically, a story that I know, and my brother, like I said, we're all close family. My brother knows me probably better than anyone, besides my wife.
Sure.
She probably knows me better now, but my brother, especially at the time, they brought him in, and they're like, is there anything you want to say to him? Like, do you want to say, goodbye or anything? And his thing was, what for? Who's gonna come out of this? He sounds like Darth Vader right now, but it's like, and he was like, no, he's gonna. And the next day, popped out.
Really?
Yep. So, and I just was like, what happened? Why is the news different? Well, I didn't, and I knew I was weaker. I knew something was up. I'd lost a bunch of weight.
Sure.
I was like, man, that's easy cutting weight. But it just, what happened was the blood disease, which is super rare, of course. Yeah. Somehow I got it. It shut my kidneys down. It shut my heart down. Shut my lungs down. It was shutting my brain down. And everything rolled back around and came back. except for my kidneys. They decided they were just going to drag ass a little.
Yeah.
So that's when we, started that adventure. It was like, you gotta pee, you gotta pee, you gotta pee, you gotta pee. I'm like, I'm freaking trying, like, and it was like I had to take time and think about it, and it was like going back to a mental state where like, okay, come on, you do this, you can do this, and it was beyond my control.
Yeah.
So
timeline wise, we're at like the tail end of your 8th grade year at this point.
At this point, we're actually into the following summer.
Okay, summer between 8th grade and freshman year.
I don't know. I remember it as the end of wrestling season. I couldn't finish it out.
Right.
And like I was able to wrestle up to the last tournament. I just couldn't go to the state tournament.
Sure.
For middle school state.
Mm-hmm.
And that burned me because I'm like, oh, I only lost once, and and I dislocated my shoulder or tore my rotator cuff, so, but, so then they finally set up a date. We're going to go in. They're like, bone marrow transplant's 3 months. And I was like, okay, so like decorate your room the way you want it, and it's, it's a big deal. And for the first, month of it, it was nothing. I was like, okay, doctors are like, you really are a rock. And then, I don't know, something got the best of me, and that'll happen, just like it would on the mat or the football field. And so then after that, they kind of cleared me. I was able to kind of go the summer with, getting, still up there a lot.
Sure.
But they started dialysis treatment on my kidneys, and I had no idea what that was. So dialysis treatment is basically your kidneys aren't working, so they put 2 very, very large needles in your arm, or in this case, it started in my chest. They had a port in there, and then they take one of the needles, takes it out, goes through a machine, and it cleans it of all your toxins and everything else, and then puts it back in. I did that 3 days a week for 2 years. So I missed a lot of school.
Well, and that's kind of, I guess I remember. So again, you were in middle school, I was in high school at the time. And I, like I talked about, remembered, okay, this, Fossey kid, and then, kind of people knew that you had cancer, and then you did kind of have that first sort of like, okay, well, he's good, and he's wrestling, and like, all's well.
Right.
And then, I just remember, again, because we weren't, close at that point. So you're kind of getting the information through other people at school.
Right.
And then I remember like being at school and people being like, oh, it's like touch and go.
Yeah. So I did dialysis for 2 years, and my full mentality is you got a lot of school left. You can get back on the mat. It's just going to take a little more time. I lost a bunch of weight, probably more importantly than anything through this, maybe even wrestling. Maybe not. I don't know. My friends are pretty great. I had the greatest support group between my family and my friends. And my friends that stuck with me through that are still my very best friends today. You hear people that go through high school and then they have best friends and then they go off to college and bam, it's over. You never, I don't have that. I have a group of 10 friends that stuck with me through everything. They came up and visited me. They did things with me, and they didn't treat me like I was sick, and that's not how I wanted to be treated. Mm-hmm. And like I was not cancer boy. I didn't want to be that. I was normal. Mm-hmm. I just had some other things going on that I didn't want to deal with, but I had to. Yeah. I grew up a lot faster than most people.
Oh, sure.
I had to grow up fast. It was a lot of staying on my own at the hospital and just kind of, fighting for what I needed or, what I thought was best, making decisions on my own. My family was involved, but I made most of the decisions myself. Sure. I think this is the best route. Let's take that, or whatever. Yeah. So, but they supported me through everything. And I to this day, if you know Bryce Nickerson, mm-hmm. his sixth sense of humor got me through a lot, and we got the same sense of humor. So that was, he came up to the hospital one time just wearing pantyhose. So
sounds about right.
And Seth Schultz and Palmer Schultz did too.
Sure.
And like, what are you guys doing? People are gonna see that. Like, they don't want that. I don't want them to know you know me.
Yeah, I don't want to be associated with these people.
Yeah.
So then, so you go through the 2 years of dialysis, and then ultimately wind up kidney transplant.
Yeah, well, the dialysis before that happened, before the kidney transplant, I ended up getting sick one night. Like, I coughed, and I ended up getting the worst headache I've ever had. And when I say worst headache I've ever had, it felt like somebody's hit me in the back of the head with a bat.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. And I knew something was off. Because all I did was cough, and it was like, boom. And I was like, man, what is this? And instantly, I was with one of my friends at the time, Patrice Bork. I was like, you got to take me to my parents' house. Like, something's wrong. And it took me there. I'm like, we got to go to Mayo now. And they're like, what's wrong? Should we call? What? I'm like, no, take me there now. Something's wrong. So we got up there. The whole ride there, it was, I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, I just got the worst headache, and it wasn't even a headache. It was beyond that. It was probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life up to that point. And I remember going through the doors of the emergency room, and then it was again. I don't remember anything for 2 weeks. I had a stroke.
Really?
Well, brain aneurysm. And again, popped out of that. So the whole thing was like a wrestling match. Like the first 6 months was like, okay, that was districts. Districts is always easy.
Yeah.
You get through districts, and then you're gonna face tougher competition when it comes to state.
Yeah.
And so I went to state, and that's when I hit some opponents that were gonna try and take me. They were, they weren't gonna let me have what I wanted, and that, ultimately, what I wanted was to win state.
Yeah.
And in this instance, it was, okay, your state medal is gonna have to be your life. And that's how I took it. I mean, it really was. I never came to terms that I was going to not be able to wrestle, maybe. After that. But, it was like, okay, this guy's ranked second. He's going to be a bitch. It was like, okay, so that's kind of how I took it. And every time, I'd just, bounce back. And finally, before you can have a kidney transplant, you have to be 2 years cancer-free.
Okay.
So, and I understand that, So, did dialysis 3 times a week, 5 hours, 3 times a week. Did that, finally got qualified. They're like, okay, there's the donor registration list, or you can have family members offer, their body parts up.
Yeah. Yep.
But, yeah, so my mom was the first one to jump in, She qualified for everything. She went through it, and it ended up being a match. And right away, we did the surgery, and the most screwed up thing about the whole ordeal was we had to check in the same night. She stayed in one hospital in Rochester. I stayed in the other.
Really?
I'm like, why are you going to drive that organ across town? Why would you do that?
Like an unnecessary risk.
But that's how it was.
I'm no doctor, but we could have rooms next to each other.
Right. So the night before, after this, I'm tired. I'm exhausted, through everything that's happened. Oh my God, I'm going, kidney transplant was 14 years ago.
Yeah.
I was exhausted of going through cancer twice, having, the blood disease that shut everything down. I was exhausted from dialysis. On top of it, you gotta throw a stroke in there. All that I was exhausted. I was probably model patient until this point.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I was scared to death. I talked to my friends about it, lots. I was like, okay, January 2nd. Here's the day. We did a lot of stuff beforehand, I'm like, I was terrified of that one thing. Never terrified. But again, going back to my wrestling scenarios, who's not terrified going into a state title match?
Yeah. This is the big one.
This is the big one, and it's in front of everybody. Everybody's watching you, and that's kind of how I took it again. I just took it like, you got to do what you got to do. You can do this. It's just get your head right. The night before, they gave me enough drugs to put an elephant out, and I could not sleep.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just paced the halls, and then in the morning they took me in, we did the surgery, and within 4 hours I was peeing on my own.
Really?
Yep. So, and then had to stay up there for just, getting checked over, make sure everything was running right, make sure there was no rejection. After 3 days after surgery, I put jeans on. My mom didn't wear jeans for like a month afterwards. She's like, how the hell are you doing that? I'm like, oh, I'm comfortable now. I'm good. Let's do this. So that was everything.
And so what age are you at the time of the transplant?
I can't remember. I was 16.
16. Okay.
Yeah, I was 16.
And this all started when you're probably, so between 7th and 8th grade, I think you're...
I was 13.
13.
So, yep.
I mean, so like a 3-year stretch of really, like kind of not only like continuous, but like one thing, and then you think it's a little better, and then, oh, hey, something worse.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, so... you talked about just your mentality all the time of always like attacking it and stuff like that. Was there any sort of like anger though of like, I'm missing these things, like whether it's wrestling or whatever, like I'm missing out on these things that was kind of my goal before all this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still pissed.
Sure.
I'm not pissed for what happened to me.
Yeah.
It probably in the long run it made me a better, stronger person, more aware of everything, like keep your friends close.
Yeah.
Keep your family close, treat everybody good. Just do everything you can better. I did not take that. I was a shitty student in high school. But I mean, I'll make excuses for that one. I wasn't around all the time. I missed a lot of things. I didn't go to the games on Friday night. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I didn't get to cruise the loop. Every time I wanted to cruise the loop, or I missed a lot. And my friends were doing this and that, and they'll tell stories. And I won't remember it. And like, it is what it is. I mean, yes, there was anger at the time, but at the time. There was anger, but it was so far hidden in me that I didn't think about it because I knew this is your job. Basically, I grew up in those 3 years beyond my age.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably more of a child now than I was then. I grew up and you just had to, that was your job. You had to go to it every day, 9 to 5, and you had to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And, you get fired, it's the end. So,
sure.
And that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah.
So I was mad. And then, towards the very, very end of everything, that's more when I was like, okay, man, I'm tired of doing this. I was like, okay. I had some instances where my temper got me. I blew up at either family or friends, or just blew up in general. Mm-hmm. I've broken a lot of knuckles. Refrigerators are not the thing to punch.
I imagine that.
I had that, but it was like coming with the, it was going to come with it eventually.
Yeah.
You can only take so much before. I won't say I never broke.
Yeah.
I mean, on that, but I think it did. It took its toll on me after a while, but then it didn't do it until I knew I was like, okay, you're here, you're done after this. You're done.
Yeah.
And I was done after that, after the kidney transplant.
So then, I mean, I imagine you have the follow-up or whatever, checkups and things, but then things keep coming back clear.
Yeah. Yep, cancer, we ended up getting 10 years out, and they're like, I actually think it was maybe even 8 when they were like, we don't need to see you for like 3 years.
Really?
And I was like, okay, instead of going back once, it started as, we need to see you every 2 weeks. Then we need to see you every month. And then it was every other month. And then it was every third month. And then, it got to like 6 months, a year. So then they kind of stuck on that year. And then it was to a point where they're like, no, we're confident. We got it this time. We're done.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of let me off. And now today I'm 19 years cancer-free. Actually, I think June will be 19 years, but close enough. I'll call it,
Yeah.
And then January 2nd was 14 years post-kidney.
Really?
Yep.
So then, I mean, how long are you kind of recovering? Do you get back to some sort of semblance of the things that you wanted to be doing?
Yeah, kind of. God bless my mom for giving me a kidney. She gave me an organ.
Yeah.
She's still alive today because I might need something else. We don't know. And thanked her for doing that because I recovered a lot better than she did. She just went downhill from here.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Mom. I love you.
Yeah.
But I lost a lot. I lost a lot of body mass. I lost, I was basically twig and bones. I mean, when I went back to the weight room for the first time ever, I was benching bar. That was it. It was I was a wreck. That was more degrading than anything else. There's things that stick in my mind more than anything. There were some friends that were up one time. I guarantee, like, the thing is, an embarrassment. You always think about yourself and how embarrassed you were, but the people who saw you do the embarrassing things, how often do they actually remember that?
Sure.
It was, there was a time where I couldn't get off the couch by myself. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, no. They were like, oh, can I help you? I'm like, no, I'll get it. Just give me 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And then going to the weight room too, it was embarrassing, because I was at the top level.
Yep.
There wasn't anybody in my grade. There was the standouts that were just as athletic as I was, just as strong as I was, but I was at the top, I thought, and right at the top with a couple 2, 3.
Yep.
And when I went in there for the first time, I was like, oh man, like I maybe need to do this on my own.
Yeah.
I need to get, and it took a while, but I'm back now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm healthy as ever, and so
I mean, was there any, I think, sometimes we kind of put that, personal embarrassment on us, or we, think we look a certain way to other people. Was there any of that either from yourself or other people? You're like, hey, this is how I used to define myself, and now I need to define myself a little differently, or maybe people define me differently?
Yeah, maybe going into that, like I just gave you the story of what happened to me.
Yeah.
But I want to make the point more than ever that what happened to me, and it was a building block in my life. I don't find myself anyway defined by having cancer or being sick. I'm much more than that. Especially as an adult, as a human being, I'm much more than that. Like, it was a time, I don't talk about it a lot. Today coming on here to do this a little bit was like, okay, maybe I just need to just talk a little bit about it, but that's not who I am.
Yep.
I don't want to be remembered for those 3 years. I want to be the kid who was, God damn, if he could have wrestled, watch out. Or after that, it was like, okay, the career kind of took a tanker. Let's get into coaching, and that was bam. Like, that was how I rebounded. Let's get into coaching. And that was, people would bring it up, like we'd go out places or to games and stuff, and everybody'd be like, hey, how you doing? And they mean well by doing that, and I'm absolutely fine. It's like, oh, I'm doing good. I'm great. I'm fantastic.
Yeah.
But I didn't always want to be stopped, because it was like,
Yeah.
that's not me. Yes, it was what happened, but that's not who I am.
Yep.
And I remember it. I'll never forget it, but part of me, doesn't want to always remember it. Like, oh, yeah, I can remember that,
Sure.
And even with my wife, like, we don't talk about it a lot,
Yeah.
She knows the gist. She knows most of it. And, she dealt with some things with her family, medical-wise, too. So neither one of us like talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, and if it has to happen, it has to happen. And you just grit through it. But I'm more than that. And, I think I try and prove that every day myself.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And is there, you kind of talked about your perspective through the whole thing, but now that you are a little removed from it, and you talked about how it's kind of a building block in your life, do you feel that, maybe it's given you a little sense of, sounds a little cliche, but like, hey, like, this is, like, I'm on borrowed time. Like, I made it through that. Like, I'm going to do what I need to do with this time.
I think so. there's been times where it's like, man, Luke, you really let yourself go here. You gotta get back in the gym, put the donuts down, just that kind of thing. Yeah, and I think that, and like I go out and enjoy myself like that, oh, I'm gonna, Thanksgiving, Christmas, you're gonna eat like a slob, but it's like right after Christmas stuff, it's like, okay, I gotta change it, and I need to get back in the gym. I need to start eating healthier. I need to, watch what I'm eating.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that thing is, that's right. But again, what happened to me was probably a fluke.
Yeah.
How often are you going to get all that? I
mean,
yeah. Like it was just, and like I said, I'm a better person today for it, but that's not, that's for just how I represent myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I want to make sure, you kind of mentioned your mom and your brother and stuff, but shout out to your family because, I don't know your family super well, but from what I know, like just super supportive with everything. And I think your mom's like the first person to like and go see my brother anytime he's doing stand-up.
Absolutely.
She's like the president of the fan club. Yeah. So, I mean, just from an outside perspective.
Logan actually called me about getting a taser, so I did that.
Just a restraining order. She can come to the show, but she's got to sit in the back.
And my mom loves your family. Your mom and dad, and my mom and dad have hung out before, like it's great. So, and they got a lot of similar things.
Yeah. Well, and did you think throughout the whole thing, you've always struck me as, and you talk here, just your own mental resiliency, but do you think even coming into that your family had a lot of that? I mean, you talk about like wrestling and stuff being a strong impact, but just the family support and sort of your family's mentality going into it.
My dad is one of the hardest working son of a guns you're ever going to meet.
Yeah.
And through the whole ordeal, he had to keep working, or we were going to drown.
Yeah.
There was a lot of bills, there was everything else, but that guy just, he blows me away, and thank God I got a lot of that mentality in me because, when I put my mind to work on something, I know, like, okay, Dad's got to do the same thing.
Sure.
And he does it day in and day out. So, and I get that a lot from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mom is too. Mom's tough. Mom had problems in her life with, things too, and she gritted through it, and Colby's the same way. Colby's, he's going to bite and grit through it, with his knee problem. He's just going to be like, hey, it is what it is, and we'll just get through it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Colby's your younger brother, for those who don't know. But yeah, and I just, that always kind of struck me too, as I feel like we're kind of similar background to that. It's just sort of blue-collar family, and that's like more than just profession, but sort of the lifestyle, the mentality, sort of the expectations.
Well, and like, when it came down to it with a kidney transplant, my mom's like, all right, same thing. She got a job to do. Mm-hmm. She was going to be my mom, and she was, she wanted to do that. It wasn't forced. It wasn't, and, she brings it up more than I do. I like I said, I don't like talk about it much. And,
yeah.
She'll bring it up, and I'll just be like, shh, shh, shh. Just, and that's fine, but I just, that's how we represent ourselves as a whole family,
Sure. So, now where you're at, what are some things that motivate you now, just in terms of, you talked about the coaching thing and those things, but I still know you to this day to be, kind of a driven guy and a focused guy. What are the things that motivate you now, or what do you look for now, having like, hey, I've been through something not a lot of people have?
Right. I want to be successful, no matter what I do. I started, I went to college, and it was... College was a party for me. I didn't take it seriously. The first thing I wanted was my coaching degree, and we actually took that together.
Yeah.
Yep. So we went down to Kirkwood and took that together. So I got that, and then it was like, all right, got that. Guess I don't need to be a teacher to coach. And that was kind of what I was leaning towards. I changed it up a little bit. I ended up working here at Wolds in St. Ansgar.
Yep.
I had no idea how big they are.
Oh, yeah.
They're huge. They sell all over the place. And so I worked there for about 6 years. Was unhappy with some things that was going on there, and I ended up taking a job in Leroy, Minnesota, doing kind of the same thing. They brought me on with my, I sell agricultural rims and wheels for John Deere, Case IH, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And they brought me on because they do a lot of that. And so I worked 4 years there, and then Bulls actually had come to me and contacted me about coming back. They had some shakeups that happened and some, in my opinion, much, much better things. And, we met a bunch of times, and it was, they asked me, one of my things was, okay, what's your goal in life? And I was like, it's a family. Yeah. I want to go, like me and my wife, we're going to start a family, and we're going to be a damn good one at that. We're going to have that house with a nice deck and a nice porch, and, we're going to have the big backyard, that kind of stuff. And like, that's what motivates me now.
Sure.
And I know I've kind of taken a step back from the wrestling thing. Mm-hmm. You probably don't hear me screaming in there as much.
Nope.
But I want to get back into it. I think that's something that I just can't. The first year I took off because I broke my ankle, and I was like, okay, well, I can't do nothing in there, And then the following year I started working back at Wolves. I travel for them now, and even with the traveling, I miss that aspect. Wrestling's a part of my life that, wrestling got me through what I got through.
Yep.
I mean, there's, family and stuff, yes, but, watch a documentary on the Brands brothers and see their mentality. Those guys they're nuts for what they do, and they, but that's kind of how I have taken it too. And wrestling is, I'm a fanatic, It's like, okay, Rachel, we got to go home because there's a meet on at 1 o'clock. I can't miss it,
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that, because, obviously I coach and always do athletics too. And, I've always found that for me to be the case too, where it was, just good training for life. And I think that's something people miss sometimes, is that like, okay, maybe winning, for me it was football and martial arts and things like those were kind of like the two that I was really competitive in, and then played baseball and track, but was real good.
Keep busy.
Yeah, exactly. That's something to do. But especially I think those contact sports, that are really physically demanding, I always saw it too as like, okay, maybe winning a football game isn't that important, but the life lessons that come from it, those can be extrapolated to anything.
Oh, absolutely. And my thing with wrestling too is, and that was a lot of this, like where my head was at, and like I don't want to brag, but I was good, when it was mattered, when I was still competing. But like the thing with wrestling is it's one-on-one. You ain't got a team to fall back on. You can't be like, that damn running back fumbled. If it's a tournament, and the one time that sticks in my head still to this day, still pisses me off. I was in overtime, kid I'd never beat, and I'm like, I've got this, I got it. He was on the bottom, and I locked my hands. That's illegal. Yep. When the opponent's on the bottom position, I lost on a penalty point. Ugh. I was so mad. I just it still bothers me, and it shouldn't, but it does. That kind of stuff is gonna stick with you. Yeah. And but that I knew that I had 2 more matches left that day. So okay, how are you gonna do this? Are you just gonna crumble because you lost that one, or are you gonna come back and get second? Yeah. So that's how not everything's gonna go well. Like with me being a sales rep. Like I go out and I can go to one place and hit it out of the park. And be like, God damn, that was successful. And then I can go to the next place, and they might as well just escort me out the door because they don't want to talk, And it's like, but I know there's another place I got to go that day, so you just got to brush it off, Sure. And that's going to be anything in life, You're going to have your ups and your downs, and sometimes there's things that happen with just things that you can't control, like, oh, my car did this, and then all of a sudden this and this and this happened, and everything piles on each other. And you got a bad day, but then you just got to rebound from it. Yeah.
Well, and that always seems to be my impression too, as you're talking, is I like Stoic Philosophy, the idea of you control what you can control, and then you realize the things you can't control, and you set that aside.
Yep.
So, and you kind of mentioned this, was going to circle back to, we took that coaching class together. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. We had a good time that weekend.
It was great. Yeah, we took some. It was like, what was it, like 2 back-to-back weekends? Was it like a Friday, Saturday,
Sunday, and then it was 2 back-to-back weekends.
2 weekends in a row, and That was a lot of fun for me because, again, like, we didn't hang out a lot in high school and stuff, just kind of different age gap or whatever. So that was kind of our first time hanging out.
Right.
We were kind of like these, like, two big goons sitting in these coaching classes, and neither of us lived down there or anything. My brother lived down there.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, and that was, like, before that, we knew each other. We would say hi and stuff. We were acquaintances, but then after those, we became friends after that.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome. That was a lot of fun. So, I guess, I don't know, man. I don't have many other questions. Is there anything else that you want to...
How about your health? How's your stuff going?
Pretty good now. Yeah, I've talked about mine a little bit here and there on the podcast stuff. But yeah, I mean, mine was not nearly as life-threatening or, anything like that as yours, but maybe similarly weird. Like, so it's sort of a strange, like, domino effect of things.
Right.
Which mine actually started with...
and I'm in no meaning trying to prod you to tell me or anything.
No, that's all right. Well, and that's all right, because that kind of got us talking about doing something like this, because I'm sure you saw it too, and I saw it too, like, there's people who go through these things and you don't know about it, or it is... Sometimes for some people it's maybe hard to talk about, or others maybe it's not hard to talk about, but like you said, like, I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on other things.
Right.
And I tend to be that way too, where it's like, yeah, this is a thing that happened and whatever. You keep rolling on.
And like I said, that what happened to me does not define me as a person. It was something, it was a building block to where I am today. Mm-hmm. And it, like, it happened. I'll never forget about it, but I don't want to talk about it all the time. I don't want to remember it every day, Yeah. When somebody sees me and they say, oh, how you doing? How's your health? I'm like, oh, how's your ugly? It's not getting better. Not to be blunt or anything, but it's just like that, that kind of thing.
And I totally get that because, whether it's on the blog or whatever, talked about, like, I had like kind of a series of strange health things too, but one of them being this bacterial infection that attacked like my digestive system. So essentially lost the ability to eat most everything for a while. I mean, there was a period where sipping water was the only thing I could do comfortably.
Yep.
So it's weird because I still eat a very, very regimented diet. And for people who know me and I hang around, then it's old hat. It's been 5 years now, so it's I still make those adjustments, but that's fine. I feel well otherwise. But it is still kind of funny, like if you're going out with people or something, like you go out, what do people do when they go out? They eat and they drink.
Right.
I don't eat most foods and I don't drink.
Right.
So then it's kind of like, oh. It's sort of like, so, like, sorry. Like, it's fine. Like, I still hang out. Like, I still talk to people, But,
exactly.
But it is a weird thing if that's how other people start to define you as, like, or, like, when you, like, the first time, like, going out to a restaurant, then I don't order any food, and people are like, well, you can't eat anything? Like, well, like, I can't eat most things, and I don't really want to run the risk of getting sick in the middle of us hanging out.
Right.
But then people get comfortable. One of my good friends, Mike Putz, one of my best friends in the world, a guy I taught with in Edgewood, Colesburg, he approached it the way that, like, I appreciate, where like we'll go out somewhere and then like he'll get something to eat and then he'll joke about it. He'll be like, "Would you sit outside? It makes me uncomfortable you watching me."
Well, and like that's just it. Like people are trying to, especially in this day and age, like eat healthier, and stuff like that. And then you go out somewhere and then you run into somebody and they're like, nice chicken breast. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Sorry, man, I'm trying to watch myself. I'm not trying to do, and that's the same thing, like you don't want to be called out on that, or you don't want to talk about that. You're living your life,
Yeah. Well, and did you find too, because, I think that just the perspective is interesting. Like for me, so I eat like chicken and quinoa and olive oil, like, a very few regimented that are like really healthy and easy to digest things or whatever. And, people say stuff like, oh, that would be terrible. It's like, well, the baseline was I felt horrible. I felt like, absolutely. Like, hey, if I feel like this for forever, like I don't want to live for very long and I can just sip water. Well, if that's the baseline, I'm like, dude, I can eat some stuff and I can work out, whatever. Like
exactly. And the thing is with some of that stuff, like, like people are like, oh, you're doing that, you're eating that. Like you can still make things good if you want.
Sure.
If you do enough research on your own to look at what you want to eat or what you want to take in, and there's that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I just appreciate your sentiment too, because that was always kind of how I tried to be too, where it was just, well, I don't, this is it. I mean, like, there's nothing,
Right.
complaining about it or being upset's not going to help any. So what can I do right now with whatever information I have? And
Yep.
you just do it.
Yeah, you just take it a day at a time, just like no different than going to your job.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to do that a day at a time. Something's going to be terrible one day, and the next day it's going to be great. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know, man. That's about
I ain't got nothing else.
all I
If
had.
you're-
But that was awesome. Well, you kind of covered all the stuff that I was really, wanted to hear. That was
sitting in the
good.
truck, like when I'm driving and I'm listening to, this podcast or this podcast and be like, oh man, I want to talk about that, or I want to say that, or, like how do you want to talk about it? You
Yeah.
know? I didn't want to come in here and sound, and I was a little nervous coming in, like, I've never done this, but other than flailing my arms around and talking with my hands, I feel like it went pretty smoothly.
Oh yeah, I thought it was awesome, man. I just I appreciate your mentality and appreciate you, and thanks for coming on, man. I think
bet.
it's a
Thank
great
you,
message for everybody.
Thanks for having me. I really
you
appreciate
bet.
this.
It was awesome. Well, thanks a lot. That's episode 6 with Luke Fossey. Thanks.